Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, May 29th. We got a mailbag show for you today. Lots of good questions coming from Irish Sports Daily subscribers over on our message board. Happy to see it. Happy to see it. A bunch of questions that came in on the off season. Sometimes you don't get that many in the mailbag shows, but people brought it today. So we're going to answer some questions about the football team, recruiting, formations, best formation on offense, things of that nature. So it's going to be a really fun show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So you know whatever it is, we are going to do a live show. The links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all of your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best custom clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025, from a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Jamie, before we get started, some props for our guy Christian. Coach Hump says, please thank Christian. Thanks for his write-up on Cohen Brown. I am much more in favor of Notre Dame securing a commitment from him. How common is it for wide receivers to squat 500 pounds? I would say that's not very common.
It's uncommon. There's not a lot of receivers. I mean, there's not a lot of receivers in college squatting 500 pounds. So that's a legit. I will say I always want to check the tape because I've seen a lot of squatting, guys throwing up the squat, videos on Twitter. Mostly linemen who do it. They're not going basement. They're not going there. You got to go low.
Yeah.
You got to, if you're not going basement, that doesn't count. It's like doing bench and you don't touch your chest. No. It's got to count. So either way, even if he's not going totally basement, that's still strong.
It's a lot of weight. That's strong, right? No matter what. I'm not going anything. I would go basement on 500 pounds. I would not come up. However, I'd be stuck in the basement. They would need paramedics and medical personnel on hand. But thank you for the props. Jacob Paulus said he read the article as well, and he thanked Christian. So look, Christian does amazing work. He is the man, right? And so thank you for giving Christian props. Jamie, should we just get to the questions? We have a lot. We'll just get to them. Again, thank you for everyone and your attendance here. So let's and for the questions that got sent in, I appreciate it. IrishOne is someone who asked a question. He said there's a lot of good ones. So let's get to the first one. ND Matt 01. Can you do a high-level overview of how a team decides who to offer? Quarterback recruiting for 2027 had me curious of the process, but I'm sure it's the same for other positions. Do position coaches need approval from coordinators or head coach? Does it go all through the GM now? I feel like my frustration with Gino and recruiting might be misplaced. So who's the one, how does an offer get sent out, right? What is the process there? Can Gino like someone running up the flagpole and, let's say Marcus Freeman or Mike Denbrock or Mike Martin can say, no, like, that's not an offer we want.
I actually don't know what specifically the process is.
It must vary. It must vary through staffs and different.
It's absolutely vary through staff. I'm just talking about specifically about Notre Dame. I don't know exactly how the process is, but it's different for different teams, right? And it's different in terms of like, well, one, that's one of the reasons you have a scouting staff and like a personnel staff is like, those guys kind of like vet guys for you. But it's not always that. Sometimes it is going to be those guys who say, hey, these are the guys we're going to offer. And they have the power to offer those guys. And then it's different where, the position coach has much more of a say, or the head coach is like, well, I got to sign off on it.
Yeah.
And it's been like that at other places, but like that now as it was maybe before, because the process is just so much bigger now. Like you're looking at 2028 guys, and like
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman doesn't have as much time to look at 2028. Make sure you look at 3 games of this 2028 prospect. It's like he's not going to have the time to do that with all those guys, and that's one of the reasons you have the GM and all that as part of it too. So I think you shouldn't. No one should be blaming just Gino. Like everyone thinking, oh, it's Gino thing in this process right now, because at this point in time, if they haven't offered anyone, that's a choice by the entire staff.
It has to. I was just going to ask that. I feel like this has to be a consensus amongst everybody, right?
Yeah.
They obviously could. There's quarterbacks that are looking at. They've made a decision not to do it yet, and it can't just be. There's no way it's just Gino being like, I'm
no way.
It's got to be all of them because it's been a while. It's a choice that they're making.
Yeah, there's a 0% chance that's Gino's like, I'm vetoing everybody here and doing that. They wouldn't give him that kind of power. They might give him the power to offer people, but they wouldn't give him the kind of power to just say like, I'm going to have total control over it. Because frankly, the fact that it's going this late, Marcus Freeman and Mike Martin would have to approve that. Mike Denbrock would have to approve that to say, because they got to know that the clock is ticking. So that is a staff choice. That's a staff choice.
Yeah. So I would say, and this to answer the question, like you can have frustrations with Gino, but it's not just him, right? It's this specific situation is a staff-wide thing. So Hart 57, this is an old question that may have been answered, but after the NIU game, I recall that their coach offered to sit with Freeman, presumably to point out a few things that he noticed and may have taken advantage of. Have you ever heard what may have been discussed? Were we tipping off what Notre Dame was doing by personnel grouping, certain tendencies in play calling, alignments, etc.? If you didn't actually hear anything, did you notice any technical changes in the way Notre Dame played after that game?
Well, there's no way we would ever know exactly. Like they're not going to. We wouldn't find out that, well, Thomas Hammock told them about these like tipping off certain things. Although that might be something that he talks about. It might be something where, they saw something with a certain personnel grouping, or they saw something with a specific player that, okay, this is what we did or whatever. And those kind of conversations do happen for sure. I mean, obviously the way Thomas Hammock handled it was like really weird and whatever, like looking for his own clout of the kind of way he handled it. But I because normally no one would come on and say it. He was like doing it to be like, yeah, we're kind of superior in this thing. And I mean, fortunately he got humbled later on, which, that it seemed like everyone who talked big after a big win, ended up getting humbled later. But it would be that kind of thing where maybe it would be tendencies or whatever, something they saw in the scout, for sure. In terms of like what they saw, but a lot of that stuff too, you're not going to like overdo it with those kind of conversations because they watch film too. They kind of know it. So it would have to be something, like a tell or something like that we saw, or something after the fact or whatever.
Well, the thing is, they only played one game too.
Yes.
It's not like Notre Dame had a bunch of tendencies. They'd only played the one game against Texas A&M. It's not like there was, they were still figuring out
their identity.
Yeah. I mean, one thing it was like Army or something. It's like later in the year. It's like, hey, you've been doing this for weeks, or like this guy is doing this or something. Right. I mean, look, they played a good game, credit to NIU, of course. Right. But like they hit a lucky pass and they played a game where 13 points was good enough or whatever, 20, whatever points. Like Notre Dame, like or 16 points was good enough. Good job. We knew that Riley Leonard, if we played cover 3, he'd throw us the ball inexplicably on 2nd and 1, It doesn't, it's not that deep. I think it's more like what you said, Jamie. It's like, oh yeah, I called Marcus Freeman. It's like, what? Why are you talking about this? Just a little. That's not something that needs to be put out there.
Don't go on 10 podcasts after you get.
Don't go on 10 podcasts.
Yeah.
But then, like, maybe do go on 10 podcasts because look, you do need to raise your profile at Northern Illinois.
Yeah,
just in some way.
Fair enough,
but
yeah.
like, it doesn't mean that whatever you talked about with Marcus Freeman was anything meaningful. I guess.
Yeah.
We don't need to take anything else away from that. Irish Calexico says, which quarterback do you think will get the first offer for 2027?
I actually have no idea. And I think no one really has any idea. I think you could say Teddy Gerard because he is going to visit. He's like the kind of like first guy up visiting. And obviously he's got a lot of big offers. So it would make sense if they liked him already, that they would offer him if they got a chance to actually sit down with him. So maybe he's like the kind of like top candidate because he's the next guy coming in. Because I don't think they're just going to phone people up. I think guys who come to campus again, for the most part, those guys are going to get offers. Or if they just really love somebody and say, hey, come here and we want you to come on the visit. Obviously there's going to be some guys throwing for them in camp too. So I don't know. I think it's up in the air right now, but if you were going to guess just based on it, it would be either Gerard or somebody who throws that invasion.
Yeah. Can they be patient because of the youth of Minchie and Carr? Like, whoever starts is going to have multiple years of eligibility. Can they be a little bit more patient because of that?
I think you can be a little bit patient because I don't know how, if you're looking at the guys that they're kind of after, I don't know how deep in the process some of these guys are in terms of like, yeah, they're going to be narrowing stuff down, but you're not going to like put it this way. If they offer like 5 guys this summer and none of those guys commit or whatever, right? Commit anywhere, right? Like they just don't commit anywhere. You think they're going to like go through the junior film of these guys and not offer more guys? They're going to offer more guys, right? Yeah. So it's still, it feels late because of how quarterback recruiting is going. And there certainly is a little bit of a musical chairs aspect of it. But I think one part of it is that you kind of know that, hey, Notre Dame's chair is open. Yeah. And that's not something that, for a lot of these guys, like they want that offer. And if they don't choose to go to Notre Dame, fine or whatever. But like, I don't think it's as dire as it's kind of portrayed to be.
Yeah, it's in a vacuum. It's late.
Yes,
but maybe not specifically to Notre Dame. And I don't think Notre Dame's not operating. Their entire staff is not operating in a vacuum. They're taking everything into account.
Well, okay. Here's a perfect example. So imagine they already had a 2027 quarterback commit.
Yeah.
And then in July, that guy decommits because he's like, you know what? I committed too soon. I want to just go and check out other places, whatever.
They'd be having to start this process.
Well, and no one would say, man, it's way too late.
Yeah.
No one would say that. You'd be like, there's plenty of time. So that's people should probably look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Tripper O, Gerby Lambert is a massive human, period. I don't see him starting in any projections, not by you guys. Will he see the field this season? What does he need to do to get out there? Thanks for what you guys do. Go Irish.
Well, he needs to be healthy, right? So he got hurt in the spring. So that hurt him, figuratively and literally in terms of, competing for a job. So we don't really kind of know where he's at in terms of like, where he's positioned. He might be the next guy in, right, at tackle there. And it's not to say that he won't all of a sudden go into camp and then be like, wow, he really took a jump. And then all of a sudden he's going to start. Like, it's possible. But I think when you look at it, they're returning 2 starting tackles.
Yeah.
And he's going to play tackle. And people thought, oh, well, Anthony Knapp will move inside and he's going to compete at center or whatever. But it's pretty obvious that they didn't view it that way because they never talked about it once. And they, like, when Rudolph talked about it, it was very specifically like Anthony Knapp's left tackle. So I think right now what you're looking at is Gerby. Probably the most likely scenario is that he's competing to be the third tackle right now, which he might play, and that could happen. I mean, obviously, look what happened last year.
Right.
Like, so things can happen there. And the other thing is sometimes people are just so good, they just jump the line. And I would even put it into this kind of perspective where Charles Jagusah doesn't practice the whole year. And I know he was supposed to be the starting left tackle before. So yeah, that's obvious. But they could have went with Sam Pendleton, who had started games all year. You would have thought, well, of course he's the next man in if Spindler or Billy Schroth goes down. No, they went to Jagusah because they thought Jagusah was better and he was good enough to do it. And ultimately, that's probably why Sam Pendleton decided to transfer. So I think, things can change quickly. Also, just because a guy's like a massive human or whatever, like we don't want to just say, oh, should be starting because of this, because it never quite works that way. You have to see him. You have to know what like Joe Rudolph thinks about him. And I think we'll have a better idea in August of where he's at.
Josh Baker, massive human. I think because of the original point, though, Gerby Lambert is like he can make them play him. He can because of his physical attributes and just his size and everything that goes along with that, right? And that's fortunate for him. He's the type of player where, hey, man, you're that big and you're that athletic. If you've got your technique down, if you've got your, the calls down, you've got everything down, and you're a player, that he's the type of guy where it's like, hey, we have to play him. And, that would probably be at Anthony Knapp's expense, but that's unknowable to us. And that's down the line, right? He's not going to start just because of his size. It all has to be there. He has to be a good football player first, which isn't to say he isn't. We just don't know. And then he got hurt, right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, got to be healthy. That's the first part. And then, look, he could definitely earn his way onto the field some kind of way, right? I don't think no one should rule it out, right? But like you said, he's got to get healthy first. Brooklyn to Chicago says, assuming Alistair Vallejo commits to Notre Dame on June 10th, how do you handle the remaining D-line recruits? Golden, Wilder, Quinn, Clark, and Blade all have Notre Dame in their top group. Who do you see Notre Dame pushing for to close out that D-line class? I personally see Golden, Wilder, and Blade as similar players. I take one from that group and go in on Quinn. What do you say, Jay?
Well, to me, I would put kind of like Golden, Quinn, and Clark kind of like above the other guys. Mm-hmm. And Wilder and Blade would just be like kind of slightly below. Obviously, they're both very good prospects. But I guess it just depends like how many guys they want, like how many guys they want to take. But I think if you look at all of that group, I think all 5 of those guys are really good prospects. So I think what you just say is that take 3 out of the 5.
Yeah. If
they want to come, just you say, hey, we're taking 3. And yeah, obviously you would maybe push more for, the first 3 that I mentioned, but that might not be how they see it, right? Like they might see it in a different way. So I think basically though, the whole point of you get Vallejo and you got, Tiki Hola, you have Dunham, you have the guys you already have in the class already. Iwatani, like those guys, that gives you the luxury to be like, we can pretty much do what we want now. Right. So that's kind of the whole point of it.
Yeah. What a position for Notre Dame to be in on the D line. It's very welcome for them just because that's kind of been the last piece on the defense, is that especially on the interior, right? They've always been able to get edge guys, maybe not the highest ranked, but like the edge guys, when they get to Notre Dame, they can play and they can play off the edge and they can get a good pass rush from there. Rodney Dunham allows them. And I think in Iwatani as well, they kind of have the same ceiling and upside there. They can just be elite pass rusher guys, but that inside interior. I mean, Vallejo, it's funny, like he doesn't have that highest ranking, but I feel like people within the Notre Dame fan base like kind of view him as like a, top 100 caliber player, right? And that's just not to say that it's wrong. It's just funny. Goes to my whole thing. Like rankings are a sham. You watch him play and you just kind of see like this is a star. Like you don't need a ranking, sometimes and credit to the fans for being able to see that. Like people watch him and they're able to make that decision. Like, no, this is a top player. I don't care what he's ranked, so that's good job by them, by the fans. IrishOne with the question. He's also in the chat. What offensive formation do you think Notre Dame will use most this season? Will they run less two tight end stuff, excluding goal line or specific short yardage needs? How about more two running back sets? I love the idea of both Love and Price on the field together. I have to say 11.
Yeah.
Denbrock loves 11. He's kind of always been an 11 personnel guy. I think the fact that, I think they like their tight ends beyond Eli Raridan, I think, but like I don't think they like them ahead of, having Jadarian Price on the field or having that third wide receiver on the field. Would you rather have a second tight end out there, or would you rather have Greathouse out there or Faison or Will Pauling or something like that? So I think it'll be mostly 11. Personally, I've kind of, I don't want to say given up on the two running back dream, but I've been calling for it for like 6-7 years and they don't really run it that much. So it is what it is. But what do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, 11 will be what they run the most of. I do think we'll see a little bit more of 21, right, with the two backs this year than we did, certainly more than we did last year. And I'm going to guess, like, with 12, I don't think it's just going to be like, specific short yardage or goal line. Like, I really think like they're going to run it a fair amount too, but a lot of it will be matchup specific, right? Because I think that's so much of that. That's the whole point of having that flexibility, right? Is that you got to do what's best for the matchup. And that's why it's a good thing to be the coordinator at Notre Dame, because you can say, well, hey, we don't think these guys can match up if we run the ball down their throats and we go heavy. So we're going to do that. Well, we think we got the advantages, outside. We think we got an advantage over their nickel. We're going to run 11 and we're going to throw the Jane Greathouse all day. So I think that's kind of how I kind of see it, is like, we'll probably see some games where it's a lot heavier 12 personnel than others.
Yeah. I mean, to your point though, the good news is they can kind of choose. They do have enough good players, to kind of decide matchup based. And that's what you want. You don't want to be pegged into one because that's the only type of way you can play. Notre Dame can play multiple ways. IrishOne says, thank you for the Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate that. We appreciate you being involved in the show and asking good questions there. Personnel questions. Next question from XRND 1994. For Notre Dame to make the championship game this season, what would have to happen offensively and defensively to make it happen?
I mean, they made it last year, so it's like, just to make the championship game, I mean, I would say be as good on offense and on defense as they were last year, and which is, easier said than done, because specifically on offense, I mean, obviously they were top 3 on defense. They were elite on defense. But on offense, it was like the first time that they had been ranked that high since like 2015, right? Like, they had a championship caliber offense in terms of ranking, but what they were missing is probably more of like the explosive passing game, just a passing game period. So if you were going to be specific about it, you would say, well, they got to get better downfield passing game. They got to be more explosive in that way. And then, I think defensively, I would say continue to be elite in the secondary in terms of your pass coverage, and, just that will kind of get you to the championship game. But I think to win it, if we're talking, because really it's not even about making the championship game anymore. It's about winning it. That's what it should be. I think, you have to be better at stopping the run with less bodies, that you don't need the extra bodies to stop the run.
Yeah. I think To me, the first thing that always comes to my mind is more explosive passing, more efficient passing, right? Because the thing that they won't have this year that they had last year was Riley Leonard, in the way that he could manufacture yards, the way that he could save drives, the way that he could, get them out of a bad play and just scramble for whatever and turn it into an explosive, I'm thinking of Navy specifically, where it's like, oh, I pulled on an RPO and it's not there. I will run for 20 yards, and even if Kenny Minchie's a quarterback, like, I don't know that he's that dynamic, right? Like, he can, if it's there, he can hurt you, but Riley Leonard was special in that way. And he was very special at avoiding sacks and things like that. So, where he's extending drives, those drives may end, right, with another quarterback. So you have to be able to, from the pocket, hurt teams through the passing game, and especially vertically. Like, vertical passing is very, very important in college football today. It's important in football, period. And that is a spot where it's like, what are they getting from Malachi Fields in that way, right? That's the question that I have. He's very physically gifted, but you got to be a big time guy there, right? That's why they brought on Chris Mitchell last year. It didn't work out, but like, they obviously want that. That's why they brought Jaden Harrison in. That's why they brought Will Pauling in this year too, because he's a very fast guy, right? So they want to get vertical. They need to be able to do that. Like, I don't think that they can play offense the same way with the personnel that they have. And, I don't want to say make the championship game, because it's, again, every game is kind of its own entity. But like you said, like, be as good and on offense as they have been, right? I think they can reach the same ranking or reach the same efficiency, but it's got to be done a different kind of way. It's not going to be done the way that they did it last year. Okay, let's see. Next question here. There we go. Irish 2104. After all the pushback, do you think USC still ends the series? And if so, what is more likely? Notre Dame joins Big Ten, or USC agrees to extension with new coach? So it's been a little bit. Do you still think USC is trying to end this series and will end the series? And then we'll get to the second part of that question.
I mean, they're obviously still trying to do it, or else they would have just signed an extension to get it done.
I think the 5+11 makes it even more likely, because they want the automatic bids, right? They want the 4-4-2-2.
It's so pathetic.
They want the 4-4-2-2-1, right? That's what they want. And if it looks like it's going to be 5+11, right? So the 5 conference champions, automatic bids. The rest are just the top 11 after that. And
to me, it's just stupid, because the odds are better that they would make it with 5+11, because there's going to be years where the ACC doesn't have more than 2 teams in the top 16.
Yeah.
And the Big 12 didn't have more. It only had 1 in the top 16. So now you're giving those automatic, qualifiers there to conferences that maybe they don't deserve it. So the SEC would have had 6 this year. I mean, the Big Ten would have only had 4, but they already had 4. You know who was nowhere close to getting in? USC. So it's still going to be hard to get to that 4 for USC if they're really kind of like, I mean, the way they're approaching it, they're like, happy to be here, basically. So I don't know. Like, I mean, it just seems like they want it to end, and it's the people who are in charge of it. And you can put a lot of the blame on Lincoln Riley, but you put the blame on Jen Cohen. You can put the blame on, maybe there's some money people who are, saying that they shouldn't do it or whatever. Like, I don't know. Because if there were sane people in the administration who actually had power, the school president, which I don't know who it is, but like whoever the school president is, if that school president actually cared about like tradition or whatever, they would have got done already. Right. So, and then I don't know about like USC agrees to extension with the new coach. I don't think the new coach is the thing, is like automatically fixes it, unless that coach is just like somebody who's like a USC type. Like, imagine that coach was Lane Kiffin. First of all, wouldn't that just be interesting if Lane got hired back at USC? Because I think Lane would say, yeah, because he was there before and whatever. Like, I think Lane would be like, yeah, we're playing this, right? Despite Ole Miss's just disgusting out of conference schedules right now. But I think he would do that because he's like been part of that before. And he'd think that they would get to a point where they could beat Notre Dame all the time. That's my opinion. What if it was that kind of coach? But if it wasn't, I don't know if that'll change anything. I mean, I do think that at some point Notre Dame will have to join the Big Ten, because I just think, like, as it gets further and further away, ACC and Big 12 just getting squeezed, and then it's just they're done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a new coach, when they come in, will try to get Notre Dame back on. I mean, it might be hard just because who knows, in a couple years, right? Like, if it goes away in a couple years, they might sign some stuff that makes it very difficult, right? I think someone will want to. It just it's so weak. I can't believe it. Like, when has a school ever like emasculated itself like this? Like, I can't. It just boggles my mind. So the next person who comes in, they're going to be like, yeah, like, we should play Notre Dame. Why aren't we playing Notre Dame? It might be hard with Jen Cohen, like you said, around, and, because she's got her fingerprints on this too. She says it's her decision, not Lincoln Riley's. So that might be difficult, but
well, Jen Cohen, you're just admitting you're a loser.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. Just not, it's, what's funny too, is she's from Arcadia, which is where like the town right next to where I grew up, and is also where my wife went to high school, Arcadia High School. So it's like it's like there is like that area is very USC. Like, that whole area is USC. Like, it's just weird. It's a strange thing to grow up in Arcadia and to go there and to not have an affiliation with like USC and Notre Dame. Like, that's odd to me. I mean, I grew up with it, right? Everyone it's like a Notre Dame USC thing. I don't understand. Beefeater ND says, Greg, if you were in the Matrix, which method of hand-to-hand combat would you learn first, and which would you learn last? Do you have a strong opinion on this?
No. What is going on with this question?
Beef's having fun. I don't know what I would learn last. I probably learn
I got to tell you, I got to pick up my kid in like 50 minutes. I appreciate these questions, but we got to go quick on these Beefeater questions. I love you, Beefeater, but we got to go quick.
I'll just say Muay Thai. I would learn that first. Seems like a good thing to do.
I would do the Kung Fu just because you get to do the Keanu. Like, I know Kung Fu. Yeah, for sure. All right, here we go. Andy Paul. Posted this on a thread. Really want to go to the Miami game. 80% of responses say don't do it because of physical or verbal abuse expected. Minority say it will be okay. What is the truth? Can I spend a weekend in Miami and safely Uber to and watch the game, or watch on TV in a hotel? I do need more info. Like, how old are you? Do you have a family? Who are you going to the game with?
Who are you going to the game with?
Don't go with the family, probably.
Yeah. Like, well, this is what I'll say. It's a night game in Miami. It's probably the biggest game of the Cristobal era. And a lot of people are likely to be unhinged and deranged. So do with that what you will, man. Like, if you want that smoke, then go. And if not, then don't, right? Like, I think you can always kind of mitigate your risk, right? When you're doing these kind of things, but it's up to you. Whatever you feel like. What do you think, Jamie?
I know from the 2017 experience from the people that were there that it was obviously not a good experience. But I would say that it could have been just like a moment in time that it was like that. I think Miami fans are kind of fickle, and who knows like what's going to come out of it. But I would say to what you agree with you, Greg, in terms of it being the biggest game. It's late at night. These guys are going to be drunk, probably like have some heat stroke, and being out all day. So it could be not the greatest. It wouldn't be my choice. It wouldn't be on the top of the list of places to go for me.
Yeah. So do with it what you will. ND Paul. IrishOne. What's the one team each of you would like to see Notre Dame play in the regular season in a home-and-home series?
You know what?
USC.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I get that would be actually the one if they weren't going to play it. I would just say, yeah, USC. I think that's, obviously that's just kind of like the obvious choice. I think there's some SEC teams. It would just be fun to have that.
Has Florida ever played in Notre Dame Stadium?
I don't believe they have.
Has Notre Dame ever played in the Swamp?
I don't believe they have. So
Well,
I think that's probably the one.
Yeah.
That's probably the one. And not that I thought about Oregon too. Jacob Paul's mentioned Oregon. I thought about Oregon, and I think also the one thing about Oregon is it'd be especially great if you're like USC's like, nah, we're not gonna play you, and Oregon's we'll play you. Like, just please, just
Dan Lanning wants to smoke. He definitely does.
Yeah, dunk on him,
boy.
Dunk on him, Dan Lanning. Yeah, dunk on him, Dan Lanning. Go for it. But I just think that it would almost seem weird seeing their weird uniforms in Notre Dame Stadium to me or something. I don't know. That's like my only thing about it. But Florida would be my first choice.
Yeah. The thing with Florida is like there's a tradition there. Like I'll tell you what, I would say Oregon, but they have to wear like the mid-90s uniforms. So it's like, we'll play Oregon. I'm fine to play Oregon. I don't want any of this like chrome, techno, goofball. Like I want the 96 Oregon uniforms with the duck on the thing. That's what I want. If you do that, then let's play Oregon. Obviously, but first on the list for me would be Florida. I want Florida. Auburn does nothing for me. Isaac K says for Auburn. Auburn does nothing to me. I have no feeling for Auburn. Because like if Notre Dame played like Florida, then like Steve Spurrier would come. It would be a whole fun thing. Danny Warfel would be there. Let's go. Give me.
Auburn's such a bipolar program too. They're either like, hey, they're really good this year, or they're like, oh my gosh, they're dreadful. They're gonna fire their coach they just signed to a $20 million contract. Like, so I don't know. To me, I've never really liked Auburn as a, because of that.
Yeah, I like. They've never played. Jacob and Isaac are mentioning they've never played. I'm fine with them never playing. Truly, give me Florida. I want Florida. It'll be fun. I want the fun of it. That'd be a fun time. CFP Hertz asks, I was rewatching highlights of the Orange Bowl for the 30th time and thought about Angeli's drive at the end of the second quarter. Some of the Penn State pods I listened to lamented that he caught them off guard by being more of a passer than a runner like Leonard. My question is, how much really changes between passing quarterbacks? What did Angeli do that was so different from what PSU would have already prepared for with Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, etc.?
Nothing. Those people on that Penn State podcast are idiots. It was a 2-minute drill. Like it was the end of the half. They knew they were passing. They weren't prepared for them throwing the ball in that situation. Then don't play football. Like that makes no sense. It's just such a weird thing to be like, well, this guy's this or whatever. It's like, there's nothing that he would do any differently than any of these other guys that would make you think, oh man, well, yes. Did they probably prepare as much for Steve Angeli there? No, but they didn't run anything that they didn't like that would blow their minds because of what he could do as a passer that Leonard can't. And Leonard cooked them in the second half throwing the ball. So I don't know. Those people doing that, not good at their job, these Penn State podcasts.
The only credit I will give them, well, maybe not credit because it has nothing to do with runner versus passer. It's simply that, like, there's no, like, teams, they do so much advanced work on these teams. And because Riley Leonard played so much, all the tendencies that they have, this is what he likes to run out of this formation. This is what they like, right? Like, the team doesn't know what to look for because I don't know what Steve Angeli likes to run out of this formation when they're in 2 minute, no one has any tape on it. So I think people underestimate on a play-to-play basis how much the defense can say down and distance, area of the field, personnel, formation, time of game. The defense can
when
narrow
something
down,
new gets introduced to it and how that can throw you off.
The defense can narrow down, they're in this, they're going to run 1 or 2 plays, right? And so the defense always kind of knows. Whereas if you add a variable to that, like a quarterback, well, actually, I don't know. And so that just gets you just a little bit on your heels. And it's not like he killed him. He had like what was it? A 40-yard drive or whatever it was. He had a couple first downs. It's not like he killed them. But, like, it just puts you on your heels a little bit. That's all. So that's what that is. It's not, this guy was a runner and now this is a passer. I don't know how to play football anymore. Like, that's not it.
That's dumb reasoning.
Silly. Yeah, that's silly. Yeah, that's not a thing. But all right. Let's go to DT Fennel. What is or is there a minimum hand measurement for a quarterback recruit?
Yeah, well, this is the thing because it's hand size, and the reason why it matters for specifically the NFL where they have it, right? Where
because the ball is different, right?
The ball is slightly different, but it's more about basically if handling the football in certain types of weather, and obviously. I've obviously done a lot of research into this in terms of the quarterbacks in the NFL. They have, this minimum hand size, or whatever. Like, so Kenny Pickett, when he was there, you go. Isaac K brought up Kenny Pickett. Yeah. Kenny Pickett. One of the reasons why there were big questions about him, well, he had 9-inch hands. Well, those would have been the smallest hands in the NFL. Like. So you can say the way that the Steelers said, they're like, well, he played in Pittsburgh. It's the same weather here, and he did fine. And that's what they said. It just turns out he just wasn't good enough at quarterback. So I think you can look at it from that way in terms of it, but it's not a good thing if someone they're not hitting the minimum. And I think really like 9.5-inch hands, and it's from your, if you could look right where your index to your thumb, right? That's what they measure, right? And if that's not 9.5 inches is below average, but there's still guys with 9.5-inch hands. So
doesn't Joe Burrow have little boy hands?
He's got like 9 1/4 or something like that. So he does have smaller hands, but again, it's the same thing where he grew up in Ohio. You've seen some of these things. I think there's differences for different guys, right? Like, and some guys can get away with it and still be pretty good college quarterbacks or NFL quarterbacks. There's one of the quarterbacks though this year that Notre Dame has obviously they haven't offered 2027. But this guy, he's got 8.5-inch hands. That's a problem. Like that. Yeah. That's a problem. Like that is a red flag, and you should probably not offer that guy, and they probably won't because of that.
Yeah. So it's important for Jamie's comments. All right. Vamos Irish. Ring, ring. It's EA Sports on the line, and all the homemade cookies you sent to their office have finally paid off. That's right. They have announced that all the Blue Blood schools will have their own customized NCAA 25 covers featuring only players from that school. And ISD has been tasked with choosing the Notre Dame players that will grace the cover. Double chocolate chip cookies for the win. You must choose 12 players, coaches, mascots for the NCAA Blue Bloods edition. Bonus points for describing the specific image seared into your mind that will be added, I guess, on the background. Double bonus points to select which one person will be front and center of it all. Triple bonus points for selecting the correct background image. There is a correct answer.
I mean, you would think that Touchdown Jesus is probably the background image. Maybe Vamos got a different idea. I don't know if I would like to hear what the correct one is if it's not Touchdown Jesus. This is a tough question. You're picking 12 guys.
Well, so 7 Heisman winners. They all have to be on it.
I think that's pretty fair. Although some of the guys are going to be in black and white pictures because I don't think they had colored pictures. That's so it's a little different. Yeah. But I think that also reflects part of the history of Notre Dame. So I also think Newt Rockne has to be on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about this? Jeremiah Love and Marcus Freeman for the current. Because you got to get the current on there. I'd say you have 7 Heisman winners. You have Newt Rockne. So that's 10 right there. Or we're going to say Rocket to be. I feel like if we're talking about, I know Tim Brown is already from the Holtz era, but Rocket, I think, is the most identifiable player from the Holtz era. And I'd probably say Manti Te'o, just in like a kind of because I think the Heisman winners kind of cover most of the other eras.
Yeah.
And certainly there's a lot of great players that could be included, but I think Manti kind of covers after Holtz, and then you got the current there. So what do you think of that? I would have Rockne front and center.
Agree with that. Definitely would have Rockne there. For the background, I couldn't I'm trying to think of like one that I'm sure that maybe the Michigan Notre Dame 37-0 scoreboard. Maybe that would be on there. I'm trying to think like if it's not Touchdown Jesus or like Touchdown Jesus with the dome, how they have that photo sometimes where it's like the side, the Touchdown Jesus over here, the dome over here. I don't know, with like a blue-gray sky or something like that, right? 4 Horsemen Ride Again, that sort of thing. I think they'd have to go with that. There's enough. It's Jacob Paulus says image seared into my mind, Golden Tate into the MSU band. It's funny. Jacob Paulus' front and center has to be Montana or Rocket. It'd be hard not to have Montana probably, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. Those Cotton Bowl uniforms.
Yeah, you kind of do need Montana on there. I think Montana ahead of Manti probably. You got to have Montana.
Or maybe you don't have the 7 Heisman winners and you just kind of,
Yeah.
Leahy, they had a lot of Heisman winners. So maybe only say, hey, Johnny Lujack, you're the Leahy guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's something like that.
All right.
Or what are 4 Horsemen? Man, it's tough. It's a great question, Vamos.
Yeah. Lots of options. Good football program, Notre Dame. Beer 30. Should Jeremiah Love be a part of the CFB 2699 club? So should he have a 99 overall rating?
Yes. I don't even think there's much debate. Yes.
No. Yeah. He's that kind of player. I don't know. He's got all the tools, right? He's got speed. He's got power. He's got athleticism. He's got size, acceleration, Jukes. He's obviously has jukes. He jumps over people, Jamie. I mean, well, he's got everything you want, right? So, look, when you got all the tools, that's got to be represented. Jeremiah Love's got all the tools. VSR Media's got all the tools, Jamie. They can help your small business. They can help your highlight reel. They can help your social media page, your small business website, whatever it might be. They've got all the tools for you. So head over there. Founded by Notre Dame pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. All right. Next question. Drew Brennan, can you envision a scenario where, similar to last year's running back commits, Notre Dame decides to go in a different direction at quarterback for the 2026 class?
Not in that same way. I don't think that it would go that way. I think what would be more likely if it did happen would be that Notre Dame says to Noah Grubbs that, look, either, Minchie or Carr, whoever doesn't win the job, they said one of those guys, that guy's leaving after this year. We're going to be short in the quarterback room. We want to take another quarterback in this class because we need the bodies. So if you recall, during the 2022 class, Steve Angeli's class, they tried to add a second quarterback.
That's right.
Walker Howard was a guy that, they almost got in that class. Like, they were trying. And I think that is probably, I don't want to say like that it's likely to happen, but I could definitely see it happening.
That's a great call, Jamie. That is no notes from me on that. That is very astute. I think that is exactly how it'll go. So that's a good job by you. I have nothing to add to that question, to that answer, because that was really good. I think that's exactly what it'll do. Loyal Stepson. One thing to consider in the Notre Dame Southern Cal soap opera is the new big contract holders say about not having the game on the schedule. Do you think CBS and NBC puts their feet down and tells Southern Cal to continue the series as is? Do you think they'll put pressure on them? Do you think the TV networks will say, especially NBC, they'll go to USC and say, hey, like, you got to make this happen. Like, you're not getting rid of this.
Well, the other thing is Fox is like, they get the first choice out of all those things. And so why wouldn't you want one more of those games? Because let's face it, other than Ohio State and Michigan playing like a big out of conference team, what other team, Penn State never plays anyone big out of conference.
Yeah. Right.
Like, so they're not
West Virginia every now and
then. They're not playing somebody of that caliber. So you have that if USC is good and Notre Dame is good and you have that first choice to make that your game, to make it your big noon kickoff or whatever they want to do, of course you'd be like, why are you getting rid of this? Like, that's stupid. I don't know if that's going to influence, what Southern Cal does, but I think if I was, what they would probably do is tell the Petiti, the Big Ten commissioner, and say like, hey, like, don't get rid of this. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is dumb. Yeah. So, but I don't know, maybe he doesn't give a crap about it, so he's not on top of it. But I would think that all three of those would say like, man, why would you want to get rid of a game that is like, it's going to be on one of those networks? Like, it's not going to, they're not putting that on the Big Ten network any year. Right. So why would you want to get rid of that game? Yeah.
So at some point you might hear about some pushback from the network and be like, hey, or the networks or whoever it might be, just like What's going on?
Pete
What do we
Bavacqua obviously runs in those circles. He
Yeah.
might back channel it and be like, guys, talk to these idiots here. Like,
Yeah.
get them going here.
Yeah. There's a second question here about, the wives of the coaches way back when, wanted the Notre Dame USC series, publicity, things of that nature. If the series stops, where could Notre Dame go to get a big national buzz? Clemson? Isn't that the point of that? That's what they're doing. They're kind of using that as a replacement. I mean, they have so many, home and homes that they have scheduled, they have lined up, and then they can just add more. Look, they're trying to do the thing with Clemson. It's just like this is one of those things where you just expect it to always happen. It's 100 years. Yeah. You just don't envision that someone is going to come in and be like, hey, we're not doing this because we have to play Northwestern on a Friday. It's Northwestern. That's why we're doing this, because they got to play Northwestern in freaking Maryland. Disgusting. It's not theirs to break, Jamie, is the thing. It's not theirs to break. It's ours. And when I say ours, I mean college football fans. Anyway, Waylor says, after studying the posted quarterback videos, I would say that Hank Hendricks from Arkansas looks exceptional both as a thrower and a runner. Have heard very little positive from you guys about him as a prospect. What are the negatives? Because they are certainly not obvious on the minimal film available on ISD.
Well, I don't think, we haven't talked about him. So it's not like, I don't think we've really talked about him that much. So I think it's more about that than anything else. So, the negatives is that he's 165 pounds. He's skinny. He looks it. Like, he looks tiny. Yeah. And I haven't seen, so it says he's 6'3", 165. I haven't seen that like verified. He looks smaller than 6'3" to me, and he looks probably 165. Like, so I think that would probably be the negative, is like, this is a guy, how big is he going to be? Like in terms of how much is he going to weigh? Because he's small. I mean, he's young right now. He's got time to put on weight. But that, if we're going to talk negatives, I think that was the thing. But I think he's got like a live arm for a guy, especially the guy that size. I like him. I just didn't bring him up as somebody to talk about. But he's a good prospect. But I think, as they kind of, Mike and I talked about on Power Hour too, there's a lot of guys you like, but he's kind of just in one of those things where you like him, but you don't love him. And that's kind of where I'd say all the guys are. Or a good portion of the guys are. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got some quotes from Marcus Freeman regarding USC. See, this is why Marcus Freeman is the guy. This is why Marcus Freeman is the guy. Jamie spoke with reporters today, from the various outlets on the USC rivalry. I would love to play them every single year. It doesn't matter when we play them. I would love to continue the rivalry as long as I'm the head coach here. Some other quotes. Start of the season, middle of the season, end of the season, I don't care. I want to play USC every year because it's great for college football.
Sounds about right. Like, sounds like a guy who is smart and confident in himself and understands what fans want, understands that he's definitely not afraid of USC or not, that game hurting their strength of schedule. So seems good. Seems like good quotes.
It's pretty black and white for me. You want my opinion? I want to play them every single year. When? I don't care. I don't care when we play them. Start of the season, middle of the season, end of the season. I don't care. This is why people like this. Oh my gosh. USC just getting absolutely torched. God.
Lincoln Riley sees as a chance. Hey, we can hide in this smoke.
God.
He Marcus Freeman, bring that smoke to me. He wants all of it.
He wants all the smoke. God bless him. Marcus Freeman doing the right thing. All right. Irish Nut. Does the offensive scheme determine who has a better shot at quarterback? Does Rudolph go with the line in the spring game, or do we think there might be a surprise or two? I think we kind of touched on the O-line part of this earlier, but does the offensive scheme determine on who has a better shot at quarterback? Personally, I think it's the opposite, but
no. Well, right now, I think it kind of already did in terms of like Steve Angeli was the third guy, because I think the other two are more athletic and better runners. And obviously Minchie is someone who's probably you would use more in that capacity, but you'll still run Carr. So it's not of enough of a thing where they're for either of them where they're going to have to tweak the scheme so much if Minchie wins it or if it's Carr. So I really don't think that it would determine it.
I think if anything, the scheme will be catered to who the best quarterback is. You know, among the, like, generally speaking, you want someone who's more mobile, right? But like, you know, I mean, it's also true. Like, the scheme is kind of the scheme, but the way that they run the offense will be catered to. Like, they won't do a lot of the same things with, let's say, CJ Carr that they did with Riley Leonard, because there's just different skill sets, right? They need them to do different things. CJ Carr will be better at things that Riley Leonard wasn't as good at, and vice versa.
Yeah.
There are things that CJ Carr won't do as well. So like that kind of happens, but you always want more versatility in your quarterback, just period. So if you have like very little versatility, and this is kind of like, there's a Noah Grubbs question. Like, this is kind of what gets at the problem with Noah Grubbs. And we've talked about this before. It's just like, there isn't that versatility isn't there.
Yeah.
So the rest of it has to be just off the charts. And right now it isn't, you know, and that's kind of the problem. Irish Marine says, if players eventually become employees of the university, what will happen to the Notre Dame program? Would they change with the rest of the college football landscape, or would they do something else drastic? I just can't see Notre Dame letting players not go to class because they are employees.
I don't think I think if that kind of goes in that way, I don't think that it'll ever go in a way where Notre Dame says, hey, you don't have to. You can just work here as a football player and not go to class, because I think a big attraction is those guys getting the degree, you know? And I just think maybe they adjust some things in terms of like, hey, well, you know what? You don't have to take this many credits to fulfill previous NCAA requirements, or maybe you don't have to graduate within this time span, because now pretty much guys are on like a 3.5 year track at Notre Dame, and maybe they say, well, you don't have to be that, and that's the way they adjust. But I think that they will continue to be students at Notre Dame, because frankly, that's most of the guys want that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole point of Notre Dame. You know, that's why you go there. That's why so many parents like it. That's why the players like it. They want that degree. That's the point. And plus Notre Dame's been so against this. It just, I don't know. They would always kind of find a way. They wouldn't go. I think this would be like a red line for Notre Dame. And we've kind of talked about this, like the things that they can do, that it's like, hey, you know, you can have like the great facility, you know, the athletic facility they're building now. Like, you can have that and still be the University of Notre Dame. Like, the players don't have to live in the dorms to still be the University of Notre Dame. The employees thing where it's like they're not going to class, like, they're not doing that. That's a bridge too far. That's a red line for them. One of one. I assume it varies by program, but in general, how are depth charts usually determined? Does the position coach have sole discretion? Is it collaborative between position coach and the coordinator, position coach, coordinator, and head coach?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely varies from program to program. And I mean, it'll even vary in terms of like some position coaches are going to have more say than some others in terms of like sometimes like a head coach or, a coordinator can overrule some guy. But put it this way, when there's a guy like Dylan McCullough and you're paying him this much money and he's associate head coach and blah, 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 that guy's going to decide who the backs are, who the guys were playing and who's playing when. I mean, it'll be in collaboration with them. And it's not to say other people won't have the say, but that's one of the things why you bring in a guy like him. And then same with Juwan Sider is like, you give those guys a certain autonomy. And for the most part, all the position coaches have that autonomy. It might change a bit at quarterback. Obviously, that could be something that kind of, is changes where like a head coach, because that position, the importance of the position, certainly there's got to be people. I think, here's an example. There was a time ago, there was a Notre Dame coordinator that didn't like a certain player. The position coach wanted this guy to play, and that guy didn't play because the coordinator didn't like him. So that can happen. That is something that can happen, but it all depends of like where the kind of hierarchy stands with, the coaching staff. And some guys are going to have more say than others, but I think for the most part, why guys like working for Marcus Freeman is he gives them a lot of leeway and a lot of their own autonomy to make these decisions. And if he steps in to overrule something, which he has, and he does sometimes, but for the most part, he gives them the like, hey, those are your guys. Okay, we're rolling with those guys.
I assume that was a problem within the staff.
Yeah, it was a problem, but I mean, I also think that it's not like totally uncommon. That happens at a lot of places.
Yeah. The thing is, all the film is gone over and they go over it together, right? Position coach, coordinator, head coach, they've all seen the same things. It would be rare for the position coach to see one thing in the quarterback or in the coordinator and the head coach to see like something completely different. Usually these are football minds, right? Especially when comes to a position coach and it's like, this is my position. I know what I'm looking at. So it'd be rare for like them to be like, hey, this guy, like he's our starter. And for the others to be like, no, like he's actually not like as good, or he's not what we're looking for or whatever. So usually you're not having those types of disagreements. I would love to, I kind of need to effort this, because people always blamed like Tommy Rees or Mike Denbrock for touches, like running back touches specifically. And I always had it in my mind, like, I don't think that's up to them. I don't think that Tommy Rees can tell Dylan McCullough, if you need touches for a specific person, then you need to call the package that they are involved in, right? I don't think they can, like, if they call, if Dylan McCullough says, hey, this is Logan Diggs' series, then it's Logan Diggs' series. Or if it's Jerron Payne's going in a third down, then he's in a third down. Mostly because he's practiced it. He's the third down back. That's what they've done in practice. You can't just throw someone out there who hasn't done it in practice. They won't do that. That's not a thing that coaches do. They want it to be repped. They want it to be predictable. So that's the thing that I always wonder, like, and I kind of want clarity on, like, how much discretion did Dylan McCullough ultimately have on the running back rotation? I assume he had pretty close to all of the discretion. He could do whatever he wanted. That was just my impression. But I'd love to find this out. I need to ask about this because
I think it was mostly him. Yeah. Not that he wouldn't be open to hearing people, but I think it was mostly.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like he's a tyrant, but it's
No,
like,
he's not. He's not.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
at all.
That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, I'm pretty sure he was the one who made those decisions.
Yeah.
Sneaky Pete 74. What's your assessment of Noah Grubbs as a quarterback prospect? How's his arm? What's his level of competition been? Have his high school numbers improved? Thanks. We've kind of talked over this. Just real quick, brief on what you feel here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good arm. He's got a plus arm. He doesn't have like a rocket launcher or anything like that. His level of competition is okay. It's not it's not the best in Florida. It's not like horrible or anything like that. His high school numbers, that's one of the things where his numbers haven't really improved to the point where you're thinking that like, oh, you've seen like a significant jump. And obviously it's not just about numbers because there's context with it too, but you'd say like the film didn't improve as much too. So that's why there's, people have some misgivings about like how good of a prospect he is or how good he can become, because he's someone who started as a freshman, continue on, had a big sophomore year. And then his junior year was like pretty good, but not like the kind of jump that you would have expected it to be. And that's like, well, what kind of, is he going to make a jump as a senior? Is this the guy who he is? Right. And that's kind of where things kind of stand with him. And he's not the only guy that it's, there's been that discussion with, but yeah, that's kind of like where things kind of stand with him right now. Like he's a good prospect, but he's not someone that, he doesn't check all the boxes as a prospect. And when you don't do that, and there's also like the thing, it's like, well, what is he elite at? And that to me is like a question about him.
Is that a broader issue with quarterback recruiting right now? Is like these guys, they've done so much at a young age, and they're, kind of all being held back, and now they're like 19, 20 going into college. Like where are they going? What are they going to become? How much better are they going to get? Right? Are they just shining against kids who are 16, 17 and they're 18, 19, Is that a problem? I feel like that might be an issue with just quarterback recruiting in general, where it's like, I don't, how much are these guys going to get better? I wonder if that's an issue.
I mean, I think there is something with that. And I was like, it's certainly a thing that if you look at like JT Daniels and Jimmy Clausen,
yeah,
like that was kind of like people had questions about it. And to be fair, it kind of turned out to be true. Like,
I mean, is it like a California quarterback thing? I mean, or warm weather quarterback thing where it's like you have this year round kind of like they're throwing the ball over the place because of the weather and that sort of thing. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there.
Maybe. I also think too, there's, I wrote the piece this week about the quarterbacks and how, basically they're quarterbacks that there's been 35 first round quarterbacks. Well, the majority of them have been two sport athletes in high school at some point in high school. So 30 of the 35, 85.7%. And, sometimes, there's nothing wrong with specialization in terms of like, you're doing extra to like get better at being a quarterback. Like, hey, it's not a bad thing to have a private quarterback coach, but if that's all your focus on that, or you didn't do some of these other things, it's like, there is something to like guys who don't specialize and get better at other things. And you, also you're a better athlete. Like instead of just working like, I'm working on stuff to be a better athlete and I'm just doing all quarterback movements or whatever. It's like, play some basketball, play baseball, do this, whatever. Right. Like also deal with adversity in some of these other sports where maybe you're not the man. Right. Like there's all of that. So I think that's some of it, is that there's too many of these guys that are like, I'm a quarterback and I'm going to, they basically from the age of like 11, their parents get them and become like, I'm just a quarterback and this is what I'm going to do. And it's just, I don't think that's helpful to those kids, you know, like I don't think it's ultimately a good thing, because not to say, yeah, getting 10,000 hours, it's like, okay, great. You're going to be better at it. But if you're doing it so early, maybe you are someone who hits your ceiling earlier because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a thing.
Yeah. Something to monitor over time. Those are the questions, Jamie. That's going to do it. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. Mike and Jamie will be back on Monday. And then Jamie and I will be back on Tuesday and Thursday for more shows of Hit and Hustle. Recruiting is heating up. So have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.